Thank you very much. And I may call on your methods of explanation. So what we want to do is become really practical here in terms of how do we take those ideas around how our brains work and the kind of conditions to get them to respond correctly to generate effective commitment and emotional bond, because I understand the task significance and I can see the beneficiary and I can process that in a way that's meaningful, so much so that I may begin to see myself differently in the world, I may begin to believe differently in the world, and I may be able to behave differently in the world. How does that all come together in a simple activity? So we had the good fortune of being in the Dominican as a team last year, and we were in a place known as Los Trenes. Has anybody been to Los Trenes? It's a really cool part that's cheap for Canadians to get to from Toronto, but wildly expensive for Americans to get to from any place in the States. I don't know why. I think it's a ploy by this particular part of the Dominican to sort of curate their tourist population. So we went, and we decided that we were doing some team meetings, but we were going to go and we were going to volunteer in the community. So we contacted someone down there who has been doing some work in the area, and Angela arranged for it. So the van came. We all get in the van. And we've been working with our brains really hard for a few days. And so when she asked us, okay, are we excited about going? We were kind of like really tired, and that beach looks so nice. I don't know. Like I know the right answer, but I'm not feeling the right answer. So we all got on the van, and we went there, and we got out, and he's unpacking. We meet him there, and he's unpacking the paint, and we all stand in a semicircle. And he gets us in a circle, and he says, listen, thanks for coming today. Can you guys tell me why you came to volunteer in our community? Now, this community is behind the tourist town, which is a very authentic tourist town. There's no, like, big hotels or anything. It's very real in a lot of senses. But this was where a lot of the poor lived, right by the dump. The town dump was right behind it. And these were just pieces of metal kind of held together by boards and nails and whatnot. And so we're standing there in a circle, and well, we said, well, you know, we want to help. And the other person said, well, and my team's all here, so I can't remember exactly what you guys said, but it was like, well, you know, we've been, you know, here enjoying this area, and we want to kind of give back. And somebody else said something else. And then one of the team members said, I don't want to be here. I'm really tired, which was honest, and that was good. He said, thank you. And then when we finished, he said, well, listen, well, I appreciate you being here with us today. Your presence in our community is completely unnecessary. We don't need you to paint for us. We know how to paint. And even though you made a donation for us to buy the paint, there are a lot of places we could go to get a donation for paint. But let me tell you why you are here. Because the folks who live here see you down in town, and they never really interact with you. You're very different. You're from away. You'll be here for a few days. You'll be on their beach, and then you'll leave. And by their beach, it's a beach that they aren't really welcome at. But what this does do is it occasions an opportunity to bring two groups together that may not ever cross paths in a meaningful way to get to know each other. And while most of you, except for Sabrina, who's on our team, and she's Latino, so she speaks Spanish, don't speak Spanish, you'll have conversations with them as you paint together, and you'll get to know them a little bit better. And that'll be good for you, but it's also good for our community, because there'll be a crowd that shows up after a little while wondering why a bunch of gringos are here painting their houses. It won't make a lot of sense to them. But that occasions some conversations and new ways of thinking as well. So thank you for being here. Drink lots of water so you don't get sick. And within 60 minutes, one member of our team got terribly dehydrated and threw up all over the place. So, so we're not very good learners. Anyways, that has nothing to do with the story. So as we're painting, I'm talking to this guy, and I said, you know, because this is exactly what we advocate. We advocate for, to frame the experience. You create proximity in the beginning through a brief. You do a brief, and you present people with a disorienting dilemma. A disorienting dilemma is it challenges the assumption which you came with. It presents you with a condition whereby you have to revisit that assumption and come up with a new reason or a new why. And his was, Your presence in our community is completely unnecessary. So he does that in the brief. We were right there with the people we were going to paint with so we could see the beneficiaries, and we now understood the significance of the task, which was not at all about painting anything, but occasioning an opportunity for two groups to come together, right? Then he would meet us at the highest level of contribution. So I'm having a conversation with him, and I said, so you do this all the time? He says, no, I'm from here, but I go up to, I also live in D.C. Oh, what do you do in D.C.? Well, I teach at Washington University. What do you teach? I teach transformative learning theory. What? You do? I never met anybody who taught transformative learning theory. They're out there. There's lots of them out there, but I just hadn't met them. I certainly didn't meet them doing a volunteering event. And then afterwards, we would do some critical reflection. So what we're going to do today is we're going to workshop this idea and see how we can take what we're already doing and add these elements to make it transformative. But before we do that, I'm going to ask, is there a microphone here? Yeah, it's got to come all the way over here. Is there a closer one over here? Yeah, okay. And Doug, at Deloitte USA, we've been working with him, as he mentioned, for about 18 months in the US. And while I'm going to present this as, you can easily do this where you work, you can bring it there, he's going to give you a reality check. Having a big firm, 55,000 people who are always on the go, traveling all the time, type A personalities, and very demanding and very, very busy. He's just going to let you know how that's going and why it might be worth going through. I don't know what he's going to say, really. Taking a chance here.
Don't do it. Don't do it. So, yeah, as Chris said, about, 18 months ago, we started working with Realize Worth. And I think that we have bought into the theory. And we're doing a couple of different things. The first, and because one of the exercises we're going to do is about brief debrief. There are some simple things I think that you can do that don't necessarily require a huge lift, but can make a big difference. Just training your volunteer site leaders to, at the beginning of a volunteering session, somehow involve the nonprofit in telling the story, or have people there so that they can see the face of the beneficiary, explain what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it and how it's going to have an impact. And then, good hygiene of just debriefing after the event to do some sense making and really start to understand that. And that may not seem like a lot, but, we do, for example, an impact day where we put 30,000 people out in a day doing volunteering. And a lot of them have these very transactional experiences, as we talked about. You're just going to show up. You show up late, you do a little volunteering, you leave to go have lunch because it's kind of a day off at the same time. And people don't really get out of it what you're looking for them to get out of it. And I think there's some simple things you can do. And we implemented this on our Impact Day, and we saw very good feedback. Big difference in the experience that people had. We're also trying to embed this in a deeper way as a development tool for our people. So we've taken a pilot of 50 folks who effectively self-identified as, in your language, guides. And one of the things we realize is we have an enormous organization and a relatively small citizenship group. So we can't do this all ourselves. We need people who feel deeply about this themselves to bring other people along on the journey. And we've put, 50 people through the pilot so far, and we're still waiting to see. We had good results out of the pilot, and we're looking at how we're going to build it out at a bigger scale. But you're trying to build a movement of people who are passionate about volunteering and who will bring other people along, because we're not going to be able to do that with just the small group we have. So it's a lot of work, but we're seeing good results. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about it if they'd like to. We're trying to figure out something new. We're taking design principles, trying stuff, seeing how it works. But I think what Chris is going to talk about here is something that we're very excited about trying and look forward to working with others on it.
Okay, Great. I thought he might share a bit more about how difficult it is to get people to change their behaviors, but that was great. Thank you, Doug, for sharing that with us. We appreciate it. And he's going to leave in a few minutes, and it's not because he's mad. He has a flight. So just if you see him walk out, don't go, I guess he didn't like what he was hearing to do, because they seem weird. It seems weird to get people into a semicircle to talk about what you're going to do and how you're going to get it done. That's fine. Who's in charge, where the exits are, that's perfect. But to tell the why story, why this matters, why it matters to this person, why it matters that we're doing it, and your disorienting dilemma, we're here to serve a meal today, but we're not going to make a dent in hunger. And by the way, the food that we're serving, you know, it's pretty okay on a nutritional scale, because that's all they had to work with. But I tell you why you are here. You're here to meet somebody that you may not normally meet and remember your humanity. That's just something like that to shift people into a, wait, what's going on? So they can alert to it and they can orient themselves to it. Once they're there, once the guy was there, once I was painting, and he came over and he started talking to me, what he was doing was meeting me at my highest level contribution. I think his name was Jose. And so as we're talking, and Jose is asking me questions about, it's very hot and I'm very sweaty, and he's just sitting there. He's not painting. That's not his job. He's not there to volunteer. He is there to find out who I am, and he's there to meet me at my highest level contribution. So that means he doesn't do the work. His work is me. And he's asking me questions, and I'm asking him questions, learning about me, and I'm learning about him. And he's meeting me at my highest level contribution because we operate as individuals when we volunteer at one of three stages. Stage one is a bit like that of a tourist. We're there for the first time. We're kind of exploring. We're curious. There's casual curiosity involved. And we're probably there because someone made us go or asked us to go. Angela stuck us on a van. Some of us didn't want to go. But you know what? We're all going, so fine, I'm going to go too. I'm not being told I had to go. I'll go, but I'm only going because you arranged it, and it's what you want to do. I'm going because of Angela. So we stand in the circle, and I hardly ever volunteer. I don't do this thing normally. What do I need? I need a good experience. I need an opportunity to fall in love with the idea of giving back in a formal way. I have a disposition towards it, like 95% of the population, but I need free space to find my own reasons for going, and I need continual opportunities to do so. And that's like when Doug, who is, not Doug, but Tiffany, how many times have you been to Toronto? One time. This is the one time, right? Okay, so she's from an area of the United States very similar to us. Nice people, lots of water, terrible weather. The Twin Cities, Minnesota, right? And Americans will often confuse the two accents as well, right? Boot. Okay, so so you've never been here before. Why did you come? Okay, but not because of Toronto. Toronto was sort of incidental. Now that you've been here, what do you think? And you, to be honest, you don't have to. You know. She's casually curious. She is a tourist by definition. She might come back because there could be something here that's interesting. There is nothing compelling. There's no intrinsic motivator here. There's not a restaurant that she loves, a club scene that she hasn't had those experiences yet. She needs time to have those experiences. Once she's been here a bunch of times, she, like everybody else, and like all Canadians that live in Toronto for some period of our lives, she will come to Toronto because Toronto offers her something, right? And it might even be that a conference that she's iffy about, if it's in Toronto, she might come to. Right? So she's intrinsically motivated, and that's when she becomes a traveler. Travelers move from this place of extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation. They have moved from a place of casual curiosity to meaningful discovery. They go back to the dog pound. The first time was okay. The second time was interesting. The third time, though, you know what? I'm getting something out of it. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I'm kind of digging it. I'm into it. I'm intrinsically motivated. I don't know exactly what it is, but I keep coming back because I'm looking for it. There's a discovery phase. Finally, a guide. So 70% of the people who volunteer through an employee volunteer program in a year will be tourists. 20 to 25% will be travelers. The last small percentage are going to be guides. Guides is intentional alignment. They already know what they believe in. It's an expression of their value system. Okay? So casual curiosity to meaningful discovery to intentional alignment. They go to the dog pound because you couldn't pay them enough not to go. Nobody has to remind them, and they don't need an external construct or a program to get them there. For them, it is who they are. These people will take a bullet for what they believe in, not because they're being paid to, but because it's who they are. And guides, this is a missional model. What we try and do is we try and find the guides that already exist in an organization and elevate their leadership. Not count on them to show up over and over again, but get them to play a leadership role to develop the travelers who are trying to figure it out. Remember, they're in that discovery phase, and create an exceptional experience for tourists to come in and fall in love with volunteering. Tourists don't need to come back, but it is our obligation to give them a great experience so they have a reason to want to come back. Okay, so Jose was assessing where I was in this. By tourist, do I do this often? We'd have one kind of conversation. Traveler, we'd have a different kind of conversation. And a guide, he might say, which he did, he came back to the our little place afterwards and we had beer and we talked about what we could do in the area, like what kind of programs could we think about, what companies might be interested, yada, yada. But that's because he was assessing us at a completely different level. So very quickly, we're going to do a little exercise here, because figuring out where people are at takes a little bit of intention on our part. We need to ask questions of people when they show up. Do you volunteer often? What brought you out today? Where else might you volunteer? Tourists are just there they'll do whatever you tell them, and then they're off to have lunch afterwards. Travelers may have an opinion. There's an emotional connection. So they may say, well, you know, where I volunteer at the dog pond I go to, we do it this way. And you're kind of like, that's annoying. Just if you could just be like the tourists, that would be much easier. And guides, they're just this calm kind of collector. They might have a weird personality, but they kind of get it. They understand how it works, and they're an includer. Okay? I'm going to do a little exercise just to show us how difficult this can be. And so what I'm hoping we can do is, it's kind of a fun thing to do. What I was going to say is, which one of these is a stage 1 statement to make? Yeah, so we'll do that. Volunteering is about making things better. Who just answered? I don't know, that's cool. Okay. Volunteering is about making things better for other people. That is a stage 1 thing to say. How many people think that? Okay. You don't understand why some of your friends and family don't want you to volunteer with you. Is that stage 1 thing? No? What stage would that be? 2? 2. 2 is right. You often help new volunteers identify tasks they can work on. 3. That's right, 3. And this was 1. Volunteering is about making things better for other people. When you're starting out, you want to help other people, you want to make things better for other people. That's not bad. But if you've been going for a long time to volunteer at a particular place, you sort of get a different idea. Well, it's working for some people. It's kind of fun. The whole thing just moves while you're talking, and it's really cool, like this. We're going to do, which one is a stage 3 statement? A major reason you volunteer is because you find it personally beneficial. Is that stage 3? Or is it, we're only looking for one answer here, and you're going to pick which one you think is right. Volunteering has made you uncertain about some of the things you believe in, or it is frustrating when you don't know what's expected of you when you volunteer. Which one of these statements is stage 3? A guide. It looks like it's going to be a major reason you volunteer is because you find it personally beneficial. Why does that seem like a guide thing to say, based on the brief description you've gotten this morning? Why would you have picked this one?
Intrinsically who you are. It's like true to yourself.
Okay, it's true to yourself. You're intrinsically motivated. That's very good. Okay, that is the right answer. A major reason you volunteer is because you find it personally beneficial. You go because of what you get out of it. And that means that you're very connected to it. You're also a pretty reliable investor in it, because you're not going for someone else, or you're not going to make someone else happy, or for any extrinsic reasons. You're going for why you like it yourself. Same reason, if you love Game of Thrones, you watch Game of Thrones, and nobody needs to remind you with an email or a phone call. Don't forget, Sunday night, Game of Thrones, you don't want to miss it. Oh yeah, I really do like that show. That's not how it works. You like it, you watch it. And if you don't, you're like, how many times am I going to hear about that show? I'll be glad when it's canceled. All right. Okay, so we have another one here. We're not going to do this one, even though we got it going, because it's lunchtime. I know, it's kind of fun to see that thing going. We'll have an entirely different conference at another time just to do polls together, and it'll be a lot of fun. The last piece is critical reflection. We asked 2 questions, and we're going to close with this. What did you experience? Was it what you expected? At the end of an event, we asked people to be present to it, not to evaluate. Was it well run? Did you have enough parking? Did you get the T-shirt size that you needed? Those things all matter, and we've got to collect that data. What we want to know is, who are you in this moment? I want people to think about that, and that's a very hard thing. The brief at the beginning is hard. The debrief is just as hard. Getting people in a semicircle and asking that question, what did you experience, and was it what you expected? Hard thinking. People will want to default. They'll want to evaluate it objectively. They don't want to be the subject in the moment. But this is where transformative thinking happens. This is where you do that critical reflection. You have that cognitive dissonance, and you think about the disorienting dilemma, and you bring meaning to your experience. That's sense-making. You bring meaning to the experience. And that's what it's going to mean for you. And that's how it's going to affect the way you see yourself in the world, what you believe to be true about the world, and how you act in the world. So, critical reflection. 2 questions for us as we close. Were you going to say anything?
Those are going to be the questions for us as we close.
Right.
So think about them for a second. What did you experience, and was it what you expected? And know that these 3 things are what you have got to train your volunteer leaders to do. This is how you scale your program. You're multiplying their effect. This is how people become advocates for their organizations, and this is how your program grows. Beginning of every event, the first 10 minutes, they've got to do those things we practiced. During the event, they've got to guide people, meet them at their highest level of contribution, give them space to progress along the journey, and at the end, they've got to do the debrief. These are the things that change us. We want to train you to do that, and we want to work with you in whatever capacity you have. If you have no resources to spend on this, we don't care. This is essential for changing this entire space. We've got to do this together. So whatever resources we can give you to make it possible for you to do that, even just the paper, there's a description of the Tourist Traveler Guide on the 3rd page, whatever we can give you to make it possible for you to do this at your organizations, let us do that. We have piles of resources. That's what that little card is on your table, just a little information about Realized Worth. And I want to tell you that because truly we will just email them to you, talk to you on the phone, whatever it takes. Let's do this together. And in reflection, let's ask the 2 questions. When you're at an event, when your volunteer leaders are trained to do this, they're going to gather everyone together at the end. They're going to ask the 2 questions, and it's going to go like this. We're all at an event together, and I say to you as your volunteer leader, okay, guys, I just want to take a few minutes at the end. So tell me, what did you experience today, and was it what you expected?
And you mean actually about this session, though, I think.
Today, right now. What did you experience today? And was it what you expected? And then this moment of awkward silence always happens. And seriously, at the event, it will take people a second. These questions are weird. It is not an evaluation. It's not did we start on time. It's not did we end on time. It's not are you hungry. It's not did you know where the bathrooms were. Was I a good leader? It's who were you in the story, as Chris said. So I'm asking you now, what did you experience today? And was it what you expected? Anyone?
Yeah.
No, well, yeah, actually, sometimes it is. And the person up front has to decide that they're okay with letting you just chill for a second. Just think about, I don't know, what did I experience? Geez, that's so weird. Oh, I just want to go. But, like, that giving that moment and letting it be awkward is okay. And sometimes you can just say, all right, if it's that kind of group, you can say, take those questions home with you. Think about them on your drive. Journal them. Most of the time, somebody will say something that someone's about to say in this room that is really, that I can see on a couple of people's faces that I know that you're comfortable sharing. Feel free to. And if you can allow yourself to be vulnerable, do that. Okay. Here.
I experienced that you really do get to great solutions really easily when you have all of the stakeholders around the table and you have all of the perspectives around the table. So we had me as a potential user of Taproot from the supplier perspective. We had Eugenia as a nonprofit. We had other people from other professional sectors and other people who have worked at nonprofits at other times in their lives, and it made it so quick and so easy for us to get to the right solutions. And that wasn't surprising to me because that's what we've been talking about for the last 24 hours or so. So, yeah, there you go.
One more.
Hi. Thank you. Andrea Hewitt. And there were 2 things that stood out to me. The first was from Chris's presentation and then discussion about needing to see the face of the beneficiary. And it was a bit jarring for me because I spend so much time and so much effort to write beautiful or, attempting to be beautiful stories. But to hear that that's not going to get them to the place of understanding and that probably there is a whole lot of deleting happening. And just finding more opportunities for people to see the actual impact of what we're encouraging them to do and how we sensitively. And then there was another piece that I've forgotten now. It was important. And it'll come back to me, I'm sure. Sorry? It's a teaser. Yeah, I'll tell you later.
Yeah, do reflect more later. So I don't want to go too much into lunchtime. Chris, any further reflection on the reflection?
Just one of the shortcuts that can help people is to say, start your sentence with, I experienced confusion, I experienced anxiety, I experienced fun. And then you can kind of explain that. But it keeps us from drifting into, I'm evaluating, that kind of thing. Is it back? It's back. All right.
Oh, your thought is back. I didn't know what was back. Sorry.
It's really not that insightful, except that, this whole process of making sure that your guides are trained to go through the Keystone behaviors was really eye-opening for me. As somebody who is a regional coordinator, I have people who are doing events in 4 different provinces, and I have committee members in those other provinces, but nobody who holds my role. And I really haven't done a good job of making sure that when they are doing their volunteer events that they're walking through this process. And even locally, making sure that somebody is walking through that process. So I feel like I may have been losing some of the value by not having that built in.
Thank you for taking the time. During lunch, I dare you, ask each other the questions. What did you experience and was it what you expected? Are we okay to go ahead and go into lunch, guys?